Just one HIPAA breach from what? You may be asking that question. And we're going to unpack this in this presentation. Breaches happen every day. The question is, what is happening as a result in your office? What corrective, preventative actions are being implemented? Today should be very eye-opening, we hope, in gaining awareness, needing to fortify additional areas of your HIPAA system. Now, one thing I'll mention, you'll see on the slide that there's a hashtag on the bottom right-hand corner. Just one HIPAA breach will be the hashtag we'll be using when we share this on social platforms. If you have any questions, you can just go to that and you'll find this video and, well, this video recording, and then you'll also, I suspect, see that other people have other questions. We're also on LinkedIn. If you type in HCSI or Healthcare Compliance Solutions, or connect with me, Lance King, you'll also find many other people that are with HCSI, and we'd love to connect. Now, who is HCSI? Well, for those of you that aren't our customers, in short, we're a compliance partner for healthcare providers and business associates. And our mission, to put it in a nutshell, is to incorporate a culture of compliance with OSHA, HIPAA, Medicare, and HR. And if you talk with our customers, you'll likely find that we believe that this culture is best created when you have a compliance officer who's given the support and resources they need so they can have autonomy, they can be engaged in communicating what's required by these different regulatory bodies and understanding how to keep them accountable. Now, we realize you have a lot going on right now. Moving forward, to avoid a mind breach with your mind's energy and focus, we'd invite you to be completely present so that we can make sure that we really feel like compliance has to be something that's done by immersion, where you have to immerse yourself initially in understanding what's required. And then once you do that, you'll find a lot of your day-to-day activities, boy, it's really not that difficult to incorporate these compliance regulations when they fit so uniformly with a lot of other operational duties that you're doing. So again, we invite you to be fully present so that these principles can really sink in, this added awareness, so that this can be something that helps you. Again, we want you to be able to do more with less as leaders, and as a result of the presentation, we want you to have peace of mind, understanding how, again, to do more with less, and stay tuned to see what I mean. So, who am I? My name is Lance King, and I'm the Vice President of Sales at Healthcare Compliance Solutions. And many of you, again, are our customers who have been invited to be a part of this presentation from a customer who thinks that we could be a pretty good fit as your compliance partner. We may be connected on LinkedIn. You may be a part of our blog, or you may be wondering, how in the world did I find this presentation? Well, hopefully that becomes a very good thing for you. And hopefully we can grow in this relationship. Well, we appreciate you being here. I'll be presenting today, and I'll answer questions throughout the presentation and after. You'll see there's a chat box. If you're on a mobile device, you'll find the chat at the bottom of your screen. And if you're just looking at this on a desktop computer, which seems to be the most popular, you'll see it at the right-hand side of the video. So take a look there real quick. And then comment as well. If you're seeing this after this has been recorded, please comment below when questions are asked. Just just right below the video. Now, a little bit more about me. I'm from Salt Lake City, Utah. And like you, I'm passionate about having more time with my family and recreation. And I'll tell you, the more I've learned about the life of healthcare practice administration, healthcare consultants, well, the more I learned about the lack of time many of you have out of the office. And so I'll just say it is rewarding to be a part of HCSI because, as I've said now, this will be the third time. We really do help people to do more with less, helping you to be effective in your leadership, helping you to understand how to be how to communicate in ways that help people incorporate compliance while making sure you're focused on all the day-to-day. So I enjoy knowing our customers can have that peace of mind, especially where there's just so much turmoil in the world that we live in. But that's who I am. What motivates me to give this presentation is, years ago, my family experienced some identity theft. My wife specifically, had a bunch of her information stolen, and it leaked out into a few hands that ended up using her information, such as her driver's license, which I couldn't believe because they discovered that one of the individuals using the license was a blonde and my wife's a brunette. And so it was shocking to see, the footage of what happened. But we went through years of hassle. I mean, years. And this was right at the beginning of our marriage. And so it took a long time to really get our lives in order as far as our information and our identity. And boy, my wife, she felt vulnerable. I was worried that, I'd have to change passwords every 6 months for the first little while, and I did. And so at any rate, boy, it really hurts to go through this, and you end up having to work with banks, and it's not a fun situation. And I'll just say, with HIPAA, patients expect their information is going to be kept safe. Quite frankly, I'm embarrassed when I go into my local, dentist office or family practice and discover the many things that they're not doing with HIPAA and OSHA. I mean, certainly I have an awareness, but it's just the little things, how they're communicating information in front of us. And at any rate, patients, again, expect their information is going to be kept safe when they go into a practice. And so let's create a resolve today to make sure we do a little bit better, if we would. And before we get into the agenda of the presentation, the last time we discussed HIPAA, I mentioned a couple things that are happening in 2016, specifically that Devin McGraw of HHS Office for Civil Rights was in the process of verifying addresses for certified entities and business associates for phase 2 HIPAA audits from the Office for Civil Rights. Now, have you recently heard of anybody going through an audit? Would you please comment? Just say yes in the comment area. Or yes, I know of somebody that's been audited. Because I'll tell you what, we've definitely heard about it. And for your information, 167 practices were selected to participate in a desk audit. And this is actually 50 more than their on-site audits in 2012. And what we now know, again, this is just kind of a little bit of a bonus information. Jocelyn Samuels indicated that they plan to finish 2016 with about 250 audits. And she indicated that 2017 will be a greater emphasis on on-site audits. Like I said, they've been doing mostly desk audits. And the main focus of the audits, they say, has been to enable OCR to identify best practices and to proactively uncover and address risks and vulnerabilities for PHI, for protected health information. And I think that's fabulous. And so these audits should assist OCR and companies like HCSI to understand how to really weight corrective and preventative actions to prevent those unfortunate security breaches that really are increasing every day. So toward the end of this presentation, I'll outline what you can expect if audited. Specifically, there are some controls that OCR are reviewing at the desk audits, and what I'll give you is come straight from them. So make sure to stay tuned. But what you're seeing on the screen is a literal letter that people have been receiving. And so there it is. And I'll talk to you about what happens after you get this letter as well. So moving right on to what to expect. So first off, I will be talking just briefly about how HIPAA is being enforced, and specifics are penalties, liability, what about whistleblowers? We had a question asked about that the other day. And then again, who enforces? There are 3 audit triggers that will put you in a position where you become a candidate for an audit. So I'll talk about those, and that's a big part of this presentation. And you may be thinking, this is kind of the elephant in the room, hey, I haven't been audited for X number of years. I'll probably never be audited. Well, again, if you saw the electoral debate or have been keeping up with updates we share on our blog or email newsletters, you'll know cybersecurity is a big issue right now, and that's one thing. I'll just kind of leak that we'll talk about. And in addition, to talk about different ways that hackers are collecting patient information, and it really is quite scary. So there'll be some examples illustrating how easy it is to hack your system. One specific thing I think you'll find with medical devices that I thought was quite shocking and very, very scary, very, very scary for a lot of families. And then I'll share some audit prep options in-house and etc., and go through these areas within audit preparation. So I've posted this picture before. I just think it's hilarious. Ever feel like this? This is what our customers tell us with HIPAA is they feel like they can't share anything. Well, once you understand how HIPAA systems work, you'll understand a little bit more of how they fit in your practice. Like I said, initially there can be a ramp up period, but once you figure out how it fits, it'll become very natural to implement, and your customers really will thank you. So I want to talk up front about the penalties of HIPAA violations. People ask about this all the time. Some people think, oh, I'll just get a slap on the wrist. No, this is a very big deal. And if you go to Google Alerts and put in HIPAA violations or HIPAA fine in Google Alerts, Google will send you, if you have a Gmail account, all the updates for HIPAA in terms of fines. Like I say, the numbers are staggering. Office is found to be in a state of non-compliance with HIPAA regulations, but then the administrator and the compliance officer has made some attempt, but just didn't know what to do correctly. And I think a lot of you may be in that position. Then the fees are only $100 to $50,000 per violation, and in that case, you're not going to have any. There's no criminal liability at this point. However, if the office is found to be in a state of non-compliance, and the attitude is such that I don't really care, I'm never going to get audited, so why should I do this? Then the fines automatically, just based on that, willful neglect, not corrected, then the fines can jump to $50,000 per violation. And you may find they may have to dig a little deeper to see if there's something that you're hiding. And so you could really open up an investigation that could put you in a real rough situation. So these fines, they really add up quickly based on the circumstances, the number of violations. We've seen fines and settlements total over $1 million, but I would say typically I see anywhere from 200 to 500,000, and I have some specific examples in a minute. So I've talked a little bit about who can be held liable for HIPAA violations. I just want to briefly touch on this just a second longer, just because I've been asked about this quite a bit. Again, the Department of Justice concluded that the criminal penalties are directly applicable to covered entities, and I've mentioned that. Now, let me also expand this a little bit, because it also includes the health plans, healthcare clearinghouses, healthcare providers who transmit claims on in electronic forms, and Medicare prescription drug card sponsors. So it really is quite a far-reaching scope. And so directors, employees, officers of the covered entity, where the covered entity, it's not an individual, they can also be directly liable under HIPAA, in accordance with the principles of corporate criminal liability. So that's what they've said, quote unquote. And then where an individual of covered entity is not directly liable under HIPAA, he or she can still be charged with conspiracy or aiding and abetting. So that's kind of their stand. And I've gone over quite a bit on willful neglect in the last slide. So hopefully that can be helpful for you. Now, what happens if you're a whistleblower? You know your practice isn't doing HIPAA. And let me just say something about this image. You may or may not understand the relevance of having, this is Edward Snowden, is a former CIA employee and a former contractor for the United States government. His thing is he copied and leaked classified information from the National Security Agency, or the NSA as people call them. And that was in 2013, and he didn't have any authorization, of course. And this event has been a huge subject for controversy. And you can call this whatever you want, but he's been called a hero. He's been called a whistleblower, a dissident, a patriot, and a traitor, because these disclosures have fueled debates over things like mass surveillance, government secrecy, and the balance between national security and information privacy. So anyway, I thought that he was kind of relevant. I'll let you be the judge of how you perceive his actions, but I will say that what he did, it took courage. He did what he thought was right, regardless of the consequences. And sometimes that's the position you have to take for your own integrity. And I'm not saying blow the whistle on your practice. I just want it to be clear that if you are in a practice that takes the position about not caring about patient information, or who's in a position of selling patient records or doing other things that are illegal, have some courage. Have courage to begin making corrective actions today, and to make sure that you take the appropriate steps forward. And if you need to know what to do, I'll share some ideas in a few minutes in terms of corrective action. And so that you are protected as a whistleblower. There are several clauses that do protect you, and I'm not going to get too much into the specifics, but you will be protected if you do blow the whistle. The HHS, Office for Civil Rights, or OCR, enforces the privacy standard, while the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, enforce the transaction and code set standards, and then the security standards as well. And so that's who would be visiting you. Want to get into three specifics that I mentioned in terms of how you would end up being audited by OCR. So I want to first start with the disgruntled ex-employee. So here's a scenario. An underappreciated office manager is tasked with several more responsibilities than she can handle. And of course, high demands cause high stress. Many of you may feel that right now with all the things that you're responsible for. Now, many may be doctors. Many of you may not be doctors, and either way, try to gain some perspective in this. So let's say the doctor is not one that listens to excuses. They're very controlling. And again, this office manager has been wound very tightly. So she begins with feeling underappreciated. Over time, she begins looking at the doctor as kind of a, you could say a mean person. You could say a lot of things, but let's say this office manager begins looking at this doctor, looking at ways to kind of get back to the doctor so that the doctor feels how tightly wound she is and how much she's being given in terms of responsibility. Nothing that bad, more so just looking for the doctor to screw up with something, and then she wouldn't necessarily run to his aid to make sure he looks good like she usually does. So in this position, and I was actually just told this from a consultant just recently, this kind of a situation happened where the doctor didn't handle a specific situation correctly. The person was fired, and as a result, the ex-employee ends up calling a hotline number and letting him know, hey, there are a lot of areas that haven't been covered with HIPAA, a lot of inappropriate disclosure of information, lack of security protocols, and the next thing you know, the call is made to HIPAA, or they actually go online, and then an audit happens. So that was kind of that could have been said a little bit more simply. Disgruntled patient. So this one may come across as being very common. So in this case, the doctor decides to vomit out a patient's prognosis in front of the people, the patient, we'll call him Dave, and didn't want to know about the circumstances. And so then the patient gets upset with the doctor, and the doctor barks that Dave shouldn't have had the people present in the room, or that Dave should have made sure he was aware beforehand by talking to the nurse that he didn't want that prognosis leaked to the people that he's with. So regardless of who's at fault, the situation escalates into an argument that neither side is willing to apologize for. Eventually, Dave leaves the room. The office manager, we'll call Sally, was assisting the doctor in the discussion, and she knew that the doctor could get in a lot of trouble if the patient complained to OCR about the breach. So she encourages the doctor to get on the phone quickly to apologize. The doctor wouldn't. He wouldn't apologize. So again, Sally says, hey, doctor, that was a pretty upset patient. We were at fault. I'm serious. You need to call this. You need to call. Get your cell phone out. Doctor remains firm in his conviction that he was in the right and wouldn't budge. So Sally then says, with a bit more boldness, doctor, you will call him. You will do it now. It's our reputation. It's our integrity. It's our responsibility. Call the patient and apologize right now. Disgruntled patient could have easily called the hotline, said, hey, this is what happened. Something like this just opens up a whole can where they then open up this inspection and can find a lot of other areas that you are also in breach of HIPAA. Now, this was a story that a consultant told me on the phone the other day. I hear a lot of stories from patients and consultants, and that consultant was the Sally in that scenario. Now, the third way that you can be on deck for an audit is a lack of security protocols. And I mentioned that, again, with cybersecurity, if you tuned into the electoral debates recently, you'll know that this is a huge concern for our country. Recently, a well-known security encryption software received a $275,000 fine. Why? Well, it's an interesting situation, actually. For years, OCR had been telling this practice management company that their security protocols would not meet HIPAA requirements. Did they listen? Well, they did listen after they were fined $275,000. That's a lot of money. So I'm bringing that up real quick just to say, hey, make sure that you do your own due diligence in determining whether or not you actually have something that's in place that is sufficient to keep your patient information safe. And encryption isn't the save-all. It really is not. So again, the real issue with this practice management company is it the fine? I don't think so. I think it has to do with what's happening with the patient records when they are breached. Approximately 29. This is the current stat since 2009. 29.3 million patient health records have been compromised in a HIPAA data breach. Okay, that is just huge, astronomical number, 29.3 million. And stolen patient health records, boy, they are, a lot of people are making a lot of money. In fact, according to the Poneman Institute, patient records can fetch as much as $363 per record, which is more than any other piece of data from any other industry. $363 per record. If we've had 29.3 million patient health records, I mean, I'm not going to do the math, but that is a lot. So why is patient health information considering more valuable than financial data? That's a good question. You look at a stolen credit card, it can be canceled. The fraudulent charges, they can be disputed. The process for resolving medical ID theft, it's just not as straightforward. So, again, just one breach away from what? Disgruntled ex-employees, upset patients, lack of security. What could cause your reputation, your job, your wallet to be put on the table? Just one breach away. Take a moment to consider, if you were to evaluate your HIPAA program, how effective are you at making sure people's information is safe? We've briefly mentioned just a few ways the information is breached. And I'll just say, as technology advances, there are going to be more platforms, more applications, and more people to transfer patient records to. So that means that there really is a great need for security protocols. The unfortunate thing is the analysis comes as a result of regular breaches that I see almost daily. And like I said, if you're tied to Google Alerts, you can be connected with how many breaches are taking place on a regular basis. It's not just large hospitals. There are so many different ways that things are are changing, and I'll unpack this a little bit. So we know, and I'll go through a few of the most vulnerable and upcoming risks as they relate to PHI. So advancing electronic medical records with tablets. Okay, email services such as Gmail. Nothing sent through these types of email accounts is encrypted. So if you're using Gmail, which I've emailed a lot of doctors with Gmail, stop it. That is not safe. You are not being protected with this kind of an account. Upcoming medical advancements, such as Johnson & Johnson's insulin pump, are becoming a threat. And I learned this from my neighbor across the street, whose daughter uses this very pump. And he said on Tuesday, he said, "Hey, did you hear that there was an article posted saying that Johnson is telling patients there's a cybersecurity bug in this pump?" And after I investigated it, I looked up the research, and so this is a huge problem. So what happens is a hacker can get into this, and they can exploit to overdose diabetic patients with insulin. Though it describes Johnson describes this as being a relatively low risk. This is kind of, as technology advances and we use more medical devices, it's just going to open up a lot of hurt for a lot of people if people start messing around with medications. It was, and this has been a hot topic, cyber vulnerability with medical devices, following some things revealed last month about some vulnerabilities in pacemakers and defibrillators. So again, these are very common things, and unfortunately, people look at these things as a way to make money and a way to get ahead. Paper records will always be an easy target. If a record gets misplaced because it's been taken home on accident or put in the trash, etc., I mean, there's just so many different ways. Business associates, such as IT companies, accounting firms, anesthesiologists, I mean, anybody that has view to patient information. And I'll just say, recently we had an anesthesiologist who was, he took home a laptop, and it had patient information on it. And he got robbed. And as a result, he was a business associate for several different practices. And as a result, that information now became available to whoever stole that laptop. And again, if they sell that, boy, that is just going to be so painful for those families that have to dispute and get their lives back in order. Text messaging is becoming more common, and there is encryption for phones and tablets and laptops. There's a lot available, a lot of security protocols that can prevent these systems from being hacked. And the word on the street is what's happening. You can read this online. Is a lot of times you won't notice that you're being hacked because they have drip campaigns where they will get into, and I understand they can get in through your internet. They can find out which medical practices are on, say, Comcast, for example, and then they can actually hack into their system and get into your PHI through your internet service provider. And that can be through your, with the information that's on the tablet, it's on the phone, and that's a lot of times because that's on a network. So we're becoming more and more vulnerable as technology advances, and again, the more need for cybersecurity protocols. Still an issue. Thought I'd just put put this up. It's kind of a humorous thing. This used to be more of the concern is emailing and faxing patient information to the wrong people. So I wanted to bring this up. Stolen health records, like I said, $363 per record. This is an actual site. This is the market, the real deal market, where people are selling, in this case, 48,000 patients from a specific state. Oh, I mean, people have websites selling this information. This is becoming more common. Okay, can you believe that? Paying a hacker because they've got all this information that they're holding up. Okay, my brother-in-law had a guy come in he's a physical therapist, and he had a guy come in with all the credentials to check on their server. And as they further checked those credentials, it turns out that it was fraudulent. And and so this guy, as I understand it, he ended up getting cuffed because I mean, this was a hospital. So, people are really getting more bold. I mean, to walk into a hospital, I couldn't believe that he was telling me that story. But with all the time you invest in your position, your company, why have something like a HIPAA breach because of an email, a text, a disgruntled ex-employee, an upset patient, or a hacker gets into your service ruin you? I mean, ruin your reputation, your brand, your integrity, your trust, your pocketbook. Years of schooling, years just working your way up. It's just not worth it. The answer really is HIPAA security. And when you look more into this, the protocol, it covers administrative, physical, and technical safeguards. And if you've done some research, you'll know the newly revised HIPAA security rule requires providers to assess the security of their databases, their applications, and systems that contain patient data against a list of 75 specific security controls. So I think it's important to understand what those controls are. And again, they include specific safeguards to be in place for protecting PHI. In encrypting data, it's not a 100% solution. That's usually what I hear is, oh, we have encryption, we're good. Encrypted data has been the major reason behind the majority of healthcare data breaches. Okay, it is not a fail-safe. So HIPAA privacy. Here are the major violations. You'll see physical theft, 49%. Hacking is on the rise. And HIPAA privacy, this protocol in particular, it covers 7 different things. So first, notice of privacy practices for PHI. Second is rights to request privacy protection for PHI. Third, access of individuals to PHI. Fourth, administrative requirements. Fifth, uses and disclosure of PHI. 6, amendment of PHI. And 7, accounting of disclosures. I think it's important to make sure that you understand those different areas. If you don't, ask some questions. I'm happy to unpack those a little bit more for you. Okay. I will say business associates specifically are on the rise as far as violations, and I've mentioned a little bit about that, but just a couple of days ago, the Women and Infants Hospital of Rhode Island agreed to pay $550,000 in settlements after failing to properly update business associate agreements. Make sure you have those updated. That is so important. As I mentioned with that anesthesiologist that had his laptop stolen, business associates can be a huge reason why your practice gets a nice little inspection. And so make sure that, I mean, who wants to pay a fine that big? That is $550,000 just for not filling out your forms. So a little bit more, and again, I'm getting into a little bit more of what you need to make sure you have in place. So this breach notification, if you do have a breach, it covers the requirements for the breach notification rule. So again, it's unlikely any organization will ever be able to prevent every possible IT security incident. I mean, I'm just putting that out there because, I'd be rolling my eyes at a guy saying, hey, you've got to have all these things in place. No, you don't. But there are some primary things you really do need to have in place to make sure you're protected. So if something was to happen, though, it's critical to develop a plan of action where when a breach occurs, and they shouldn't just try to protect the data, but implement an incident response plan when that hack's identified. So again, a couple of reasons that you would then have this response plan used is, could be due to negligence or malicious actions. Employees we've talked about are often involved in healthcare data breaches if they're record snooping. I have a whole presentation I've done on record snooping because that's been a huge reason many places have been fined. I won't get into too many stories now, but if you're interested, there's some really interesting situations that have surfaced as a result of celebrities that people have looked at their records. So employee awareness and incident response training should be implemented. Okay. And electronic health records specialists, they can provide some remote storage and backup data backup systems. So keep that in mind. And while you're listening to this, while this may not necessarily present as strong as a defense against hackers and data breaches as data encryption, having a breach notification, it just provides some security for healthcare organizations against potential software failures or natural disasters that could destroy or damage any of your files. So that's a big reason you want to make sure this is implemented. And again, you can see on the screen major areas that have been breached. So if you are in an audit, what is the timeline? I'm asked that a lot. So if you get a letter, as you saw earlier, letters mailed within 10 days, they ask you to send documentation, and there are really 10 days. You're providing policies and procedures basically that are relevant to the controls that they're looking at. Okay. If you don't have the requested documentation, then you have to submit an explanation for the deficiency in its response. Okay, and I'll show you what this screen looks like if you're in a position to submit things to OCR. So then they do their on-site field work, or they do a desk audit based on the controls they're looking at. After that, there's an audit report where corrective action is then required and preventative action. You get a chance to review it. You get a chance to sign it. And then if you're fined, which if they have to dig, it's likely you're going to be fined. So you might as well have this just memorized. You're going to see this on many of my trainings, just because I think it's just a simple diagram of what you need to have in place. So if you're audited, they're going to look at your policies and procedures, how they're customized and tailored to your practice. They're going to look for ongoing and updated documentation They're going to want to see forms that have been customized. They're going to want to see that you have training certificates, your business associate contracts, your risk analysis and management plan. So get these in order. Okay. And let me just ask, are your current security measures, would you say they're sufficient to at least reduce risks and vulnerabilities? Well, how effective are they being at this point? Again, do you have, I mentioned earlier, there was a company fined for not having strong enough encryption. Do you have strong enough encryption? Okay, make sure to ask these questions. Now, in your risk management program, here's what's required under the desk audit. If you're audited by OCR right now, this is what the desk audit's requiring, okay? Here's your privacy rule controls, your breach notification rule controls, your security rule controls. So just take a note of that. You can find everything that's actually being asked of you right on their website. Okay, and if you're asked to give documentation, which you would be if you're being audited, I don't know if that you can see this screen extremely well. Came in a little bit blurry, but you can see upload file, several areas. You can see a comments box. Let me make this a little bit bigger for you. So let's just section out notice of privacy practices, content requirements. So so what you'd have to do is you'd actually have to upload your documentation. So you need to have, a lot of people think they can just write down all their policies and the procedures with handwritten information. You really need to have these things ready and prepared to be able to upload. Okay. And then to make comments if, boy, saying I realize I need improvement in that comments box, I'm sure would do you so much good. So just keep these things in mind. I just wanted to kind of give you an inside view of what this process would be like if you're audited, and to now evaluate yourself on kind of where you stand in terms of the violation penalty tiers. Now that I've mentioned the violations in the beginning, and we've talked about some things that are required for HIPAA, are you first, second, third, or fourth tier? Ask yourself. With the first or second tier, is compliance something that your office takes seriously and establishes a culture within the office so you can have patient information protected? I mean, is that where you're at right now? Are you in the third tier? Is it something your office does with minimal effort to make it look like you're doing something while putting patient information at risk? Are you in the fourth tier? Is compliance something that your office is just irritated with? You make almost no effort to be compliant, and therefore you're putting your patient's personal information seriously at risk. So the auditor determines their own answer for these questions, and they apply the fines and penalties based on their interpretation of your office's compliance efforts. But boy, what a time where you can reflect on this and make sure to make the necessary changes. Now, let me just say this right now, compliance, we realize you've got a lot going on, doctors, physicians, consultants. If you can see, healthcare compliance isn't always at the top of the totem pole priority list. And so we get that. We try to help people realize that they can automate this process, and that moves it up a little bit. And also, boy, I would put it right there with patient care. Again, having had our identity stolen, having to go through that process. I want to make sure when I take my kids to the doctor and I have to give all this information, that my information is going to be safe. So there's only 168 hours in a week. You're asking yourself, hey, how can I keep up? Okay, I've got patients, staff, front desk. I've only got so much I can offer, right? Yes, we get that. We totally get that. We also get that audits are increasing because of the increased number of breaches throughout the United States. Okay, again, millions of patient information, millions of medical records breached this year. And with the increase of healthcare apps, the increase of online resources for patients to access their records, cloud storage, mobile devices, and all their applications for improved communication, there's just such a need to incorporate a culture of compliance with privacy and security, have systems involved to automate, have autonomy with compliance. Make this easier than it has to be. Look familiar? This may be your system. Okay, if you do, congratulations. Okay, you're doing something. But we can do a little better, right? So just want to talk about some pros and cons of what you can do if you're in a position where you're saying, hey, I really need some help. Lance, you just listed those 7 things required for privacy, HIPAA privacy. I don't even know what you're talking about. What is encryption? Okay, there's a lot of help you can get. Consultants can be a great way. Okay, if you're really far behind, they can be a great way. If you feel like having somebody come in and take care of your practice face to face, boy, this really can make a difference for you. You may just consider starting with a security risk analysis. A guy I talked to, an optometrist, was able to purchase one. He said they were charging about $700 to have a security risk assessment done, but that could be something a consultant could do, or something you could just do. Just get a 360-degree look at where everything's at, and this will help you identify strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to then determine the course of action. And again, I'm happy to, if you want to go this route, I'm happy to give you some tips. Okay. You could do something like what we do, which is have everything online, where staff's trained online, books are sent to you, and you have consulting through phone support and email support. I mean, this is just another avenue. Okay. Again, if you're starting from scratch, but you do have options. Okay. Consultants can be a great option. Let me just say that they can be expensive. Some of them charge $1,200 to $1,500 a day, depending on the gap analysis. Okay. And the gap analysis is where you are today and where you need to be tomorrow. Okay. In-house. Okay. This can be very cost effective, except that you've got a lot going on. We looked at all those different cups of water. There's only so much you can offer. We get that. Hopefully these webinars that I'm doing, these presentations, can be instructive in helping you to understand how you can develop some autonomy and begin communicating a culture of compliance in-house. Now, if you want an online approach, there are pros and cons. The pro is a lot of it's automated, a lot of the customized policies and procedures. It's just a very simple format that you walk through. And, a negative part to this is with training, you still have to make sure people are actually being trained. So tie it to a performance review or something else. But sometimes online scares people, and we understand that. It can feel like it's a lot. But again, that's why you just have to kind of evaluate where you're at. So when compliance starts coming through the fence like this vine, and boy, for those of you that my wife does a lot of gardening, and I help with, I'm the guy that shovels the holes for her, and she plants things, and I also help weed. And I see all the time, when I go to mow the lawn, some of her grapes or things coming through the fence, and then I have to make sure to to keep things contained. If compliance starts getting out of hand, we want to help contain this and make this manageable for you if we can. So the 3 main things you can expect with us, if you decide this is something you want to do. If you're a customer, certainly this is more of, hey, what do we have? And I'll give you kind of a quick overview of, so you can make sure you are aware of all that you are paying for and all the support as your compliance partner. So training is usually what people ask us about. How do we get trained? We don't want to go to seminars anymore. We don't want to have to leave the office and close down because of the expense, etc. So we do online training for new employees, and then retraining, because like Medicare, for example, they require every single year. And then you do your HIPAA, and your OSHA is something that you do every single year. Okay. In addition, we provide all your manuals. So if you ever get audited, you'll have this compliance plans binder, and it'll be customized with all your forms, all of your plans, and everything that you need to pass an audit with flying colors. In fact, we've had people who've had auditors come in, they've looked at the binder, and then they've walked away. We provide very consultative services where you're seeing things like these trainings. You get phone and email support, quarterly assessments. We'll actually call you each quarter, and in the first year, we make sure everybody's training, make sure we unpack everything that you're learning in the beginning, because we realize that there's a lot to take in. Customizable forms, just a customer's testimonial, and then I want to unpack just a little bit more of what we do for the compliance officers, because again, it's like, this is all like drinking from a fire hose, and we get that, and we want to make sure this is manageable, and we can help you to implement throughout the year everything that's going to be required to make sure you're on top of this. This customer said our HIPAA OSHA compliance was a huge concern in our office, especially after one of our employees filed a complaint with OSHA. Okay, there's that disgruntled employee. We started using HCSI 4 years ago. Couldn't be happier. Simple to set up and easy to use. Do yourself a favor. It will make your life easier. And I really agree. I think the company does a great job making your lives a lot easier and helping you to do more with less. Here's another one. Excuse me. HCSI kept my fanny out of the who's cow with a cranky patient who thought we had been naughty in multiple ways. Have you ever had that happen? I don't know if you'd call them, well, anyway, they could go by many names, right? Our association with you made all the difference. We passed the inspection with flying colors and told OCR told the patient to bug off. So if you do decide that you want to consider us, certainly we have a 30-day money-back guarantee. I've never had to give that, just because people, I think you'll be amazed in what we do. Now let me break this down for you, and I'm going to just make a quick emphasis on the compliance officer training. So if you've never been through compliance officer training, compliance officers, this is a specific training to understand your duties as a compliance officer. And then you've got the employee training. Then you've got the risk analysis that you look after, the compliance plans. You've got the forms, you've got the posters. And so this is kind of all within your realm of responsibility. And so we help with that, with the compliance updates. You'll know which forms need to be, make sure you have updated. You'll know how to update your compliance plans on a regular basis. And one thing you'll learn is, I mean, there are a lot of ongoing internal compliance procedures that compliance officers are responsible for throughout the year. And what you'll learn is, again, as I mentioned a few times, how a lot of those are aligned to a lot of your regular operational activities. So $3,500 value of what we're providing. If you go to hcsiinc.com, you can purchase your account. And that's an account that we're giving you at $11.89 plus $3 per employee. Okay, and that's what we're willing to do right now. I'll tell you what, very competitive. We're very competitive in the industry. You'll find that a lot of people they'll have things maybe a little less expensive on an individual level, but when you really bring all the pieces together, because there's a lot of pieces to this puzzle of compliance, you'll find in many cases you'll be spending $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 to make sure you're up to speed. Okay. Now there is a ramp up. We get that. I did a webinar last week that was on leadership. We gave $300 off. I'm willing to offer that in the month of October. Okay, it's an early bird discount. So we want to reward you for being a part of this webinar. And if this is something that is of interest to you, I'll give you my my information in just a minute. Okay, I want to just say a couple more things about being a compliance officer. As a compliance officer, we get that this is something that you may not have gone to school for. We get that you have other office responsibilities. Okay, if you're at the front desk or if you're at the back desk, wherever this individual is at, this person, after going through the compliance officer training online, will understand their responsibilities. Okay. So one lady said, "Hey, I've been doing this for 35 years. I don't know if I can let anybody else do this." Give yourself the permission to say, "Yes, I can delegate this. And yes, I can be comfortable enough to give someone else the opportunity to be the compliance officer." And again, as a compliance partner, we'll make sure they can develop autonomy. We'll make sure to unpack all their responsibilities over time. Okay. Your policies and your procedures. Okay. A lot of people, a lot of offices that I've gone to, I've seen cubbies like this where their policies and procedures are all over the place. Okay. You'll find everything will be very uniform, very organized, and we'll make sure to keep you up to date. Our quarterly assessment support calls. I just wanted to say a little bit more about this. These support calls are done every 3 months for the first year. We'll assess your account. We'll make sure people have trained. We'll make sure if there are any updates that we need to talk about, that we make special emphasis on that call. Okay. Now, you're welcome to call us or email us at any time for support questions, but this quarterly assessment support call, it's critical for us in helping make sure that your office has as much help as you can in the beginning, because there is a little bit that is required in the ramp up stages. You know, there are almost 100 forms between HIPAA, OSHA, Medicare, and HR. There's almost 100 forms. Many people ask, well, which forms do we use? Okay, that's a big part of what these calls are for. So I'm Lance King. This is my information, lking@hcsiinc.com. Email me, and let's, you know, if I can help you out, I'm happy to help out with the risk assessment. I'd be more than willing to give you some pointers on what you need to do, and to at least send you some resources that can help get this started for you if you're trying to do this in-house. If you're a customer of ours, remember we do give you $100 if you do refer somebody to us. We've been sending out $100 gift cards all month, all year. Last month, we were able to send out a few. We hope to send out many in the month of October.